Hi everyone, this is Nahi. Today is Friday, July 17th, 2015. Our theme of the month is assessments, and what we did on the call today is enable people to do a quick assessment on a group off the top of their head, just with information they had in their head. And I thought that was really interesting. And then I thought, because our group conversation rambled a lot and many of you might not have time, that it might be fun for me to just kind of record the overview of the PowerPoint for you and maybe take a little bit less time than the full hour of the group call. So let's see how it goes. So basically the model we used is our social styles model. And this is an interesting little matrix. It's kind of like the DISC assessment. It's something you can do on teams, but as a leader of a team or as a member of a team, you could do a little manual one on your own, and that's what we walked everyone through today. So what I had people do is think of a group, and it doesn't have to be your work group. So to give an example, I did my family group, and what we first do is plot them on the spectrum of task-oriented at the top and people-oriented at the bottom. And I plotted my family. Now, my daughter's not like extreme people-oriented. I think we're all pretty much in the middle of the spectrum, but I spread them out a little bit just so that you could see them on the spectrum. But you could have people on top of each other. What you're trying to figure out is who's more people-oriented and who's more task-oriented. And just to give you an idea, the people who are more people-oriented are always going to think of people first. The people who are more task-oriented are going to be run by their to-do list, and they're going to be thinking about tasks first. So you don't have to get it right. You just want to kind of make an intuitive hit and try to plot people on this spectrum in terms of how people-oriented they are versus how task-oriented they are. Then we're going to take the horizontal spectrum, and the horizontal spectrum, we had a lot of words that were, kind of politically correct, but if you're just doing this for your own team, honestly, the best way to look at it is who's loud and who's quiet. The loudness is really not just loudness, but also more telling you what to do, saying, do this, do this, do this. So having sort of an authority about them or an assertiveness about them when they ask you to do something. And I just said ask you to do something. Someone on the quieter end might ask you to do something. Somebody over here on the louder end might actually tell you to do something. So when you plot everybody on your map here, you're going to find a nice little spread. And some people are going to be really close together, and some people are going to be further apart. And the one thing to keep in mind is that this assessment has nothing to do with who people really are. It just shows how they show up in a group. And this is my family, so I'm mom in this assessment, and I've never shown up here for any work groups I was in. I'm in this quadrant for that when I originally did this assessment when I was in a technology company, I came out in this quadrant. Then I did it in a small group of women that I'm in right now. It's sort of a success team, and I came out in this part of the quadrant. And when I did it with my family, I assessed myself kind of here, which I thought was real. So you can see I'm touching all four quadrants, and many people will. Some people will be very extreme and in one. But the important thing is it says nothing to do with who you are. It has to do with who you're showing up with in that group. It might have a little bit to do with who you are, but okay, so let's tell you what the quadrants mean. So this kind of corresponds to the DISC. A lot of people will take the DISC assessment, which is really popular. So I sort of put D-I-S-C in these quadrants if you wanted to correlate this assessment with the DISC assessment. But just as a quick summary, the people who are in the D quadrant, who are more task-focused and tend to be louder or more authoritative or assertive, are called drivers. And on the DISC, I think they're called dominant. And they're efficient. Their whole focus is on getting us from point A to point B as quickly as possible. And in their focus on getting from point A to point B as quickly as possible, because that's what their eye is on, they tend to not notice what's going on with people sometimes. And so they will inadvertently have collateral damage. They will maybe hurt people's feelings without realizing it, leave people out without realizing it, and they may be completely oblivious to this until someone brings it to their attention. And sometimes people are afraid to bring it to their attention. So that's kind of the positive and the negative side of the people in the D quadrant. Now, the thing that's great about having drivers on a team is that these are the people that drive towards results, and they keep everybody on task when people are starting to get off on tangents, which is really good. If you go to the I quadrant, these are people who are also pretty loud and assertive and, have pretty big personalities, but they're more people-oriented than task-oriented. So what they come across is very high energy. They're the ones that make everything fun. They're the ones that, are enthusiastic, and that's why on the disc they're called the influencers. They can be very inspirational. They walk into a party and they sort of, all the light shines on them. They're just very, very charismatic. So the good thing is that they can inspire people. They can get people excited about a vision. They can make work fun. They can help people get engaged. That's the good part about them. And then the thing that's on their negative side is that their high energy can sometimes be overwhelming to others, and they may not always be very concerned with details. Then as you get into the S quadrant, or the amiable quadrant, you have people who are also very people-oriented, but they're quieter. So these tend to be the really good listeners, the ones who are very caring, and they're the ones that everyone goes to and vents. So they serve a very important purpose in an organization because they're the ear, they're the mentor, they're the one who cares, they're the ones who help people grow, they're the ones who help people find meaning in their work, or that map their work on a career path, or help people feel better when they're feeling down. Amiables are really good at getting a group to work very effectively together. The thing with amiables is that they tend to be really, really good at creating harmony in a group and paying attention to the people, but often they'll let the people issues take over, which means that they don't get to their tasks as quickly. And so they may move a little bit slower towards results, but to them it's worth it because everybody's on board and they have buy-in. Okay, now the analyticals, sometimes called the C. So the S on the disc is called steady. Amiables tend to work at a steadier pace towards their goals. So they call on the disc, they call it steady. Analyticals they call conscientious. I would say you could call them very controlling. They really like control. What's most important to them is getting things right, and they tend to attend to detail. Okay, so the good thing about analyticals is they're great in finance positions or in other positions where numbers and details matter, healthcare, anything where details matter. And if you don't get the details right, it could have a really strong negative impact. So you can usually rely on analyticals to get the job done correctly and right. But because they need a lot of concentration in order to do that, they tend to withdraw. And this withdrawing is what makes them unreachable sometimes to others. The other thing with analyticals is when they explain things, they tend to assume that they need to explain all the details because that's what they needed to understand the situation, and other people that can get confused with all those details and sometimes will tune them out. So that's kind of at a glance what goes on in these quadrants. Now, it's important to understand that the reason you're using this tool is not really to judge or to stereotype people or to put them into a different quadrant, because all quadrants have great qualities to them and they're all needed on a team. But what this will do is explain conflicts that you have going on very clearly, okay? Drivers will most often conflict with amiables, and the reason is because amiables are so concerned with what's going on with people. They are so attuned to people that they will always notice when someone gets their feelings hurt, or someone's not included, or someone feels left out. And they see all that. Drivers don't see that. They're so busy trying to get from point A to point B that they don't realize that they're hurting people. And amiables see the drivers as just hurting machines, just hurting people left and right, and they can get very angry with drivers, and they can think that they're bad people because they hurt people's feelings. The drivers have no intention to hurt people's feelings, which is they're actually really good at accepting feedback because they don't take things personally, and they don't expect anybody else to take things personally. So this is why amiables will sometimes misinterpret drivers' behavior as intentionally hurting people. Drivers do tend to hurt people, but they don't tend to do it intentionally. And then drivers tend to get frustrated with amiables because they tend to go slow and spend too much time with the people and let the people issues get in the way of the tasks. And the drivers see the only thing as important is getting from point A to point B very quickly. So they see the amiables as kind of slow and maybe not attending to the important things, and drivers can get frustrated at anything that takes them off the path. So that's how drivers and amiables can get in each other's, can conflict. Analyticals and expressives are also going to conflict quite a bit. An expressive is really, really high energy, and an analytical needs a lot of quiet in order to focus, and they need everything under control, and expressives aren't as attentive to detail. So analyticals will look at expressives and go, oh my gosh, everything's going to be out of control. They're like a whirling dervish. And expressives will look at analyticals and feel like because they're so withdrawn, they can't connect to them. And expressives are so used to connecting to people that they just want to make the analyticals more fun and, you know, get some kind of emotional happy energy out of them, and they can't. And so analyticals and expressives tend to drive each other nuts in organizations. Again, these are social styles. They can still all be good people. They just have different ways that they interact with the world. Okay, so the important thing to understand here is that if you're going to find yourself in one of these quadrants. And so here is where we talk about how do you flex to other styles, because you really need to understand that every style has an important value that they offer to the organization. The driver will get you to point A, from point A to point B, but if nobody else is enjoying the process, that's not going to be very good. If quality is sacrificed, that's not going to be very good. And if everyone is upset, that's not going to be very good. So analyticals help drivers make sure that they're not only getting a product out, but they're getting it out high quality. Amiables help drivers attend to buy-in and get people feeling good about what they're doing. And expressives really influence the process. They're really great with customers. They get people excited about it, and that emotional buy-in is really important. What drivers need to do is have patience and recognize that there may be very good reasons to slow down, and they also need to pay more attention to people's skills, so that cues. So that's how drivers can flex. Expressives are really, really, as we said, high energy, and what they need to realize is that there's value that they can get from all these other styles. So an expressive can get a lot of value from a driver because a driver will move from point A to point B very, very quickly and cut through the clutter. Expressives are going to make very good use of analyticals because what they're selling to their customers is going to end up being a very high quality product, and problems are going to be solved. And there's somebody to attend to the details and make sure that things get done. Amiables are going to be really good for expressives because they are willing to invest time in people, and people who are upset and have problems, sometimes they're not really quick problems that can be solved through just a short conversation. Amiables will take a lot of time one-on-one with people to interact and solve their problems. So that's why all these other styles are really good for expressives. What expressives need to understand is that their energy can overwhelm others, so not to take it personally when other people need space or quiet. So to give people a little bit more space and quiet, and go ahead and leverage their talent because they're the ones to go to when we need the positive energy, but then also know that the other styles will need more quiet when they work sometimes. Amiables need to understand that it's good for people to be happy, but if everyone's happy and nothing's getting done, then the company's not going to be very profitable. So drivers are very useful because they can see very clearly what needs to be done, and drivers are Amiables' actual best ally because they can help Amiables know what the most important things are to get done. Analyticals are great for Amiables because not only do they get things done, but they make sure everything's high quality, and expressives can get people really motivated and excited. So while Amiables can soothe people and make sure everyone's feeling okay and feeling mentored, expressives can get them all rallied and moving in action. So Amiables need to keep in mind that other people aren't doing it on purpose when they hurt people. And so they need to be a little bit more flexible, and they need to learn to speak their mind. And when something's going wrong, to actually say, you know what, I don't really like that, or that's not going to work for me. A driver will listen to feedback from an amiable if they're succinct about it. Okay, analyticals. What analyticals need to do is reach out and touch people more. They have to understand that no news is bad news. If they just stay in their hole and keep working and they don't tell people where they're at or how they're doing, then other people are going to start worrying about them. The other thing analyticals need to watch is they have a tendency to share all the details when they share information. What they need to do is hone on what the top 2 or 3 most important things are and be able to communicate in bullets. If an analytical, like a CFO, can communicate to a driver or a CEO in bullets, they're going to get their message out a lot more clearly than if they prepare a 5-page report. So that's how to flex if you fall in one of these quadrants. Now, how to flex to people. So let's say you're working with someone in each of these quadrants. How would you flex to those people? Okay, if you want to flex to a driver, what you want to do is give them just the facts, and only 3 to 5, nothing more than 3 to 5 bullets. That's how much information you want to give them. You also want to tell them what the task is you're working on, when it will be done, and if for any reason you get behind schedule, you tell them up front proactively that you're going to be behind schedule and you give them a new ETA. And you also tell them directly how they impact others. So if they miss people issues, if they have some collateral damage, bring it to their attention and let them know. And don't do it with an angry edge. Just factually say, hey, when you said X at the meeting, you may not have understood, but it really got Gerald all upset because it sounded to him like you were taking all his job responsibilities and transferring them over to Tanya. So now he's really worried that he's going to get fired, and you probably didn't mean to send that message. And a driver will go, oh, gosh, you're right, I didn't mean to send that message. Let me go fix that. And he or she would immediately go fix it. Okay, if you have an expressive on your team, what you want to do is get excited with them. Show them the fun side of yourself. Give them opportunities to speak and inspire people anytime you can. Make them the center of attention. Get them in front of the audience. They're going to get everybody excited for you. To get them excited about a project, show them an exciting vision of what happens at the finish line. So if you want them to do something for you, give them a picture of the finish line and show them how great it's going to be. If you have an amiable on your team, make sure the amiable feels heard and that they know that you care about who they are personally. So you may need to spend a little bit more time listening to them and talking to them. Also, when you want them to move and get more things done, show them how people will be positively impacted by what you need them to do. For analyticals need to see the thinking behind your decisions. So with analyticals, you're going to need to bring some backup and share with them how you came to a decision in order to get their buy-in. Also, analyticals need space, and they need to prepare for your next conversation. So instead of just popping in on them, like maybe what an expressive might do or might appreciate in others, just being popped in on, an analytical is going to need to know the date of your next meeting and what they're expected to bring to the next meeting, because they will prepare for it. So this is how to flex to each of the different styles. One thing you need to understand, the value of this matrix is really just to help you see the value. We need everybody in an effective group. The drivers will get the job done efficiently. The expressives will keep people engaged and having fun. The amiables will help people work together effectively. And the analyticals will see what can go wrong and handle the details and make sure things are done right. When people get under your skin, look for where it might be coming from. Look for the positive intention. If they have a different style from you, try to understand what it's like to be in that style. Keep in mind that no type makes a better leader or salesperson. I have to say, we do stereotype a little bit. We say, oh, the drivers make leaders, the expressives are salespeople, the amiables are the HR people, and the analyticals are the engineers and the finance people. But it doesn't always fall out that way, so be really careful about stereotyping people. Remember, this says nothing about who you are as a person or who you are underneath. Two people could be feeling the same thing and score completely different quadrants. This is just how you prefer to work and interact with others. Learn how to flex to other people's styles. That's going to help you work more effectively on your team. Okay, so I think that's it with this. Thank you so much for taking the time, and please send me an email or interact with me if you have any questions on it.